everybody. Today is March 1st, Fat Tuesday. It's also the beginning of a new season of Let's Do Lunch, the show where we talk about all things digital. And we're going to be having a fantastic season. And we're kicking it off with our Rise of the NFTs series. And I'll be introducing our session in just a minute. First off, my name is Ned Sherman. I'm a partner at Manat Phelps and Phillips, where I head the games and esports practice and digital transactions group. And I'm also one of the co-founders of Digital Media Wire, the producer of Let's Do Lunch and the owner of Digital Entertainment World. I know a lot of you guys were at the event, the Do event a couple weeks ago. Fantastic event, really enjoyed all the audience participation. And with that in mind, let me invite all participants today to go to the bottom nav to the chat area, open up the chat, select from the drop down everyone, and tell us who you are. Drop in a little bit about yourself. This is a great place to make comments during the show, to meet people, and we love getting a lively audience going. So thank you, Tom. Great to see your post. So if you have questions specifically for our panelists today, please put those in the Q&A area, which is just to the left of the chat, so it's easy for our panelists to see all of your questions. Okay, without further ado, let me introduce our fantastic speakers today. As I said, our topic is the rise of NFTs. This is a topic that we started back in February of last year. Things have really changed. If you watch some of those sessions that we did in this series in 2021, I think you're going to hear a lot of developments that have taken place since those early sessions that we did. So on the show today is Jeremy Lewis, Senior Director, NFT Acquisition of Crypto.com. Jeremy, welcome.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Great to have you here. And our moderator today is Phil Ranta. Phil is CEO of Wormhole Labs. Phil, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me, Ned. Appreciate it.
Have a great show, guys.
Thank you. Wow, it has been a year since we started the Rise of the NFTs series on Digital Entertainment World. Jeremy and I think have also been talking NFTs for about a year now too, so that makes for that anniversary as well. But thank you all. As you can see from how many people are in this panel, NFTs are still very much on the rise, still very much at the top of people's minds. I'm Phil Ranta. I'm the CEO of Wormhole Labs. You can see more at wormholelabs.com. But just to do a proper introduction for Jeremy, Senior Director of NFT Acquisition at Crypto.com. And for those of you who don't know, Crypto.com/NFT has launched some of the largest NFT collections, including Loaded Lions, which has $34.4 million in sales as of this morning. Ugonzo Arts Psycho Kitties has done 11 million in sales. Recently, last week, Alphabot Society, which I am a happy Alphabot Society owner, $3.8 million in sales. That's in the past week, another new IP. You've also done collections by Snoop Dogg, Aston Martin, Heavy Metal, UFC, Death Row Records, Murder Beats, and perhaps most importantly, Phil Ranta, my project with Own Every Word, which I appreciate. I know it's a lot. That's like going over This Is Your Life of the last year, but it's a lot of projects.
The craziness ensues. It keeps going. It's not stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, speaking of the craziness, I always like to start these panels by going over some of the news from NFT world that has happened just in the last 7 days to show how active this is. First of all, the invasion of Ukraine led to a huge launches of NFTs and DAOs to raise funds, including one by the Pussy Riot founder. And Jeremy, you also said that they put Polkadot now as a donation form.
Yeah, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, they're expanding their options. I love it.
Yeah, being able to cross country lines with crypto donations is huge. Someone mysteriously airdropped a COVID NFT to 96,000 wallets. Still trying to figure out who that is, but that seems to be some sort of artist stunt. Nelson Mandela's paintings from prison are going to be sold as NFTs. A vending machine appeared in New York City selling Solana NFTs, which we're still trying to figure out. Model Irene Zhao announced she made $5 million last month with her lo-fi meme project, Irene DAO. The Buzzy Sotheby's CryptoPunks auction was mysteriously canceled, and people are still trying to figure out what's happening there. Dutch artist Dadara announced a project to make an NFT for every person in the world. Still trying to figure out how that's going to work. There's an indie movie called Caladita that's raising their production funds through NFTs, and an artist blew up a Lamborghini Huracan to make an NFT out of it. this is a weird market if this is the news.
Just another week.
Just another week in NFT land, right? So, Jeremy, I ask everyone this, and I have been for the past year to set the table. In your own words, what is an NFT?
What is an NFT? My stock answer, but I think it's the most accurate. I'd love to hear what your favorite is besides mine after I get done. Is an NFT, a non-fungible token, simply a unit of information. A unit of information that's recorded on a blockchain about a good or a service that is not interchangeable.
I think that's a perfectly fair answer for it, right? It's, a lot of people want to call it a JPEG, they want to call it a GIF, they want to call it an underlying smart contract, but it's all,
It's a very stressful answer because people have a lot of opinions about, what an NFT is, and I think they get it conflated with, what it does or what it might be similar to. But that's the simplest form that I can get. But by all means, that's the most difficult question I think that there is to answer. What is an NFT?
Right. It's kind of like saying, what is a metaverse? Well, it's kind of everything with digital identity online, but it's kind of nothing because are we calling a metaverse? Are we calling Facebook a metaverse? It's just it's fraught.
Ask me 10 years.
There we go. We'll figure it out by then. But you come from crypto.com, as a lot of people know if they watch television or look at billboards or read the news. Crypto.com is one of the biggest brands in cryptocurrency, not only with naming rights to the previously named Staples Center in Los Angeles, a Super Bowl commercial with LeBron James with very hidden, fun QR codes and stuff in it. Another campaign with Matt Damon, Fortune Favors the Brave, also had cool hidden QR codes inside of it. But also, on a few occasions, has become the #1 app of all apps on the Google Play Store. So we know the cryptocurrency side of crypto.com, but what do NFTs have to do with this ecosystem?
NFTs, and maybe I'm a little biased because it's my domain, but I genuinely view NFTs as, without question, the best conversation starter between us and someone who's not already working with us or someone who's not already in the crypto atmosphere. And the reason I believe that is because it creates a unit that people are used to interacting with just in a different vehicle. So whether that's access to a club or getting into an event or having a community that ties people together that used to be maybe sports or something else that we're used to, but it puts it in this new vehicle and it allows everyone to kind of continue to grow and learn with the growth of whatever it is that the brand is trying to build. And so from a partnership perspective and from a creative perspective, it's a very easy way to start a conversation that leads to something larger.
No, it makes a ton of sense. And it's a nice little public face, right? If these were just contracts and you had to read through like the ERC contracts and everything, people would not care. But if they have a really cool
I don't personally.
Yeah, exactly. I've tried to read those. That's hard reading. You need to have a computer science and a law degree at the same time in order to read those things.
Indeed.
So how does the overall brand of crypto.com then look at NFTs? Is it core to the company's overall strategy? Is it the cost of doing business if you're in cryptocurrency? Is it something where they see the larger ecosystem, including the LA Live and previously known Staples Center, now crypto.com arena? Does it integrate with all of that? Or how does the company look at this?
So the company as a whole, you got to remember, not too long ago, a couple of years, we were 1/10 the size. And I believe we've, 10x'd over and over and over again to the point where we look at the whole ecosystem and the full life cycle of a crypto, either native or crypto curious or the persuadable type of audience, and go, what are they going to need? And we have to build for people who are maybe just like testing things out today or maybe aren't so sure. But the only thing that was very much like a rock solid we do not want to waver on is trust. Mm-hmm. When you lose somebody's trust, they go somewhere else. Like, it's one thing if somebody might have a better development cycle and put out a product that is a better fit for some consumer. We can't help that. What we can help is try to align and put our brand and the things that we're active against right next to things that people do trust or do have a real emotion and nostalgia kind of based attraction towards. And that also gets us in trouble. And like, you can't just put your name on things that people knew earlier on and just expect them to be okay with it from day one. But I genuinely think that if you're thinking along, it's okay to kind of ruffle feathers, do things that are innovative along the way, as long as you back it up long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure you feel this in the same way that when I worked at Facebook, I felt this. I'm sure you feel this with crypto.com. People have very strong opinions about cryptocurrency, about NFTs. You'll see market leaders say this is all a scam and it's all a house of cards. You'll also see Visa and MasterCard buying into it, or some of the biggest brands in the world, and some of the biggest investors in the world, and SoftBank and everything, putting hundreds of millions of dollars into it. So it's this kind of weird dichotomy between really smart people saying this is all awful and really smart people saying this is the greatest thing ever. And you're kind of there in the middle of it, as one of the biggest platforms.
But to me, the you have to be bold. You have to be bold. You have to be bold. And it's not that you have to be so bold that you can't admit when you're wrong, right? Which I'm sure happens every single day with every single big name at every company ever. Like, there are plenty of things we don't get correct. But at the end of the day, the way we look at it, the only way to prove to 8 billion people around the world that this is going to actually add value to their lives is by starting somewhere with a subsect of people who will start to try things and see what happens, break things, make things better. And along the way, we learn a lot. We do a lot more kind of right than we do all the way right or wrong. But at the end of the day, like, if you are actively trying to always do what's best for what's to come, right, you'll eventually meet people where they are. You're not going to get everybody today, but you will meet them where they are.
Yeah, I don't know if who remembers the 90s when everybody was weird about putting your address and credit card information online for online shopping. I remember my parents would not let me join eBay when it first started because they said, if you put in your payment information, then hackers are going to steal it and you're going to lose everything. And now what are they doing? They want to buy something. They go, hey, Alexa, go buy. Sorry to everybody who has that device at home that I just activated, but buy this. And then,
But it's true.
Yeah, but it feels like kind of the same over and over again as people saying this is dangerous, this is scary, I don't want it. And then you stumble, you gain trust, and then it hits mass market adoption. People forget they hated it, and then they move on to the next thing to hate.
But also, you're going to put your payment information there, it's going to get stolen. You might. It's true. That happens. That happens every day. That's probably happened since we started this. And like, I think the people get into trouble when they try and be so binary about it. No, it's very good, or no, it's very bad. It's like, no, there's a lot of good, a lot of bad. And so it's like, how do you continue to not pretend as if these massive things aren't an issue that need to be fixed, while at the same time shepherding people towards where we want to be?
Yeah, knowing you probably do a lot of the same, but I'm very proud with everybody who knows NFTs really well to share the rugs, meaning the people who launched a project and then shut it down right away after they made a bunch of money. Because I say this is the truth of the market, but also there's a lot of great stuff,
But it's, fortunately for us, going back to that whole, you can't alter the record, right? Mm-hmm. If someone shows you their hand and they turn out to be the absolute worst version of anything anyone can imagine, that's not going anywhere. Right. And the big difference between, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the millennials and older and Gen Z and younger, is that Gen Zs only know a world with internet. They're not going to fall for the same things and the same traps that my age group and older are going to fall into. They know how to, they should all be in the FBI. If they want to find out a piece of information, they will know where to look, they will find it, and they will be able to speak to why someone should or shouldn't get into something or be involved on social media better than anybody else over the age of 40, 50, 60 that you can imagine. Kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for, and blockchain will create this foundation where there's a universal source of truth and nobody can mess with it. So you have to either rebrand or do a lot of apologizing.
Right. And the internet has an infinitely long memory. So I won't say any of the rugs, but there's been some famous rugs this week that have happened. They're never going to be able to work in crypto and NFTs again. The next project they launch, people say, well, why didn't you just do that with the last project?
No, but there's a website I'd love to tip you off onto that is actually one of my favorites. So I don't know if, rugdoc.io for everyone who's not used it. rugdoc.io. Not a personal. This is something that I use personally. It's not something that we work with at crypto.com. But take a look. A lot of the information, if actual security audits have been put forward, if they've reached out to the teams, are available there. It's a great resource to start. I'm sure there's other options there, and I'm not saying it's the universal source of truth. But if you're interested in getting into the kind of emotional layer of like, hey, did they put all the things that are there? Did the audit actually go through, right? That's a great place to start. And I use it as a resource all the time for my personal investments.
I love it. I love it. Just to let the audience know right now, we are going to have a Q&A at the end. And I already see there's a lot of people having conversation that's Q&A worthy in the chat. So feel free to hit that Q&A button at the bottom, throw in your question. We'll try to leave 15, 20 minutes at the end because I know that a lot of people have a lot of questions for Jeremy. In regards to going back to crypto.com, crypto.com has a chain that they like that is a sister company, an associated company, Crow. Can you talk a little bit about what the relationship is to crypto.com NFT, and the Crow blockchain?
Yeah, so this is personally, and if one of my people from brand marketing are on, please take offense to this. I think this is the most confusing thing that we do by far. And the more I find, the more I learn about it, I realize why it's so confusing. We as crypto.com, right? We are obviously a revenue generating organization. We are looking to be able to build that trust across the ecosystem. Part of that is being able to have alternatives that don't rely on a chain that is either really hard on the environment, ultimately not in our control as far as development life cycle, and not something that we're able to, as new things kind of come into our ecosystem, whether it's from a compliance and regulatory perspective or the end user consumer perspective, right? Really push innovation in a way that fits into our larger ecosystem. So to backtrack a couple of years, a chain called crypto.org chain was pushed out, and it was by far one of the fastest adopted because we have such a large user base at crypto.com, but the team and the chain team that builds that is a separate entity for a ton of legal purposes than obviously crypto.com. On top of that, crypto.org, the actual protocol and the chain that we pushed out, is separate than what we recently have gone to market with, which is Kronos. Kronos is very similar to that crypto.org chain. However, it builds in the EVM compatible. So smart chain compatible, not smart chain compatible. Both, however, are built on the Cosmos SDK, which for my nerds out there is one of the most, I think, under-marketed and overperforming SDKs in the market. And if you're looking to kind of figure out which blockchain might be right for you to build on, I can't suggest going and checking out the Cosmos SDK enough.
Yeah, and for those of you who are frantically Googling right now, this will be back up to watch for a re-record, so you can go back bit by bit and do it. But I absolutely agree. Look at Cosmos, for the love of God. It's so fantastic. There's so much great technology being built around that. Back to the NFT side, you have done massive campaigns, and for anyone on the partnership side, I'm sure are giving you rounds of applause right now for the kind of huge campaigns. Everyone from Aston Martin to Death Row Records and everything in between. At what stage of creative development do you start having these conversations? Do they just come to you and say, I want NFTs, and then you help them all the way through, or do they generally have an idea?
The money question. It's to say that it's highly customized would be like the understatement of a century. And I do mean that truthfully. We as an organization, right? Like when I joined, I think I was the point number 13. Now I think we're over 3,500, 4,000. I mean, it's ridiculous as far as the growth. And with that, we're constantly looking, like I said earlier, at NFTs as like the best conversation starter, because you're essentially walking to the table with a partner and saying, hey, from $1, we're going to be able to generate revenue together. And so when we look at projects, it's a bit of, where are we at as far as bandwidth and what we could take on internally? And also a little bit of like, where do we want to be in 2 or 3 months when this actually goes live? And for some projects that are very plug and play, and they're very few and far between, because plug and play in an industry that's very new is a bit sparse, I'll put it that way. Sure. But for some, they come to us, and the common denominator among a lot of these partnerships is that they actually have more to offer than they realize. Right. I think some people think that they have to reinvent the way that they do business or their assets or whatever it is they need to bring to the table. And I try and like frame this in like, no. What do you guys do best? Like, what is your current customer base? What's your current fan base looking to do? What has like seen success in the past? And we'll package it around that. And a lot of times it's not a ton of effort and not a ton of creativity. It's just, hey, you got to tell us what's worked before. Or if you're starting something new, you need to put the legwork in, because what are you going to do that's going to stand out among all the noise? And there's obviously huge risk, huge reward with all the time, effort that goes into it. But for those teams that are coming to us and saying, hey, we want to be able to do all the creative, we want to be able to manage the engagement, we want to be able to do this, we need you to make sure that we're not taking money from anybody that we shouldn't take money from, right? Like, great, that's a big piece. But that allows us to do what we do best and them to do what they do best. And on the flip side, a lot of these larger partnerships with the existing global brands, a lot of times it's really closer to like, hey, do we enter this into more of a partnership where we really are collaborative, or even bring in a third party outside of us to help bring this to market? Or do we set a team in place that can work together to kind of try launching something smaller up front and then blowing it up as long as the fans of the community really kind of grab onto it. So it's a long way of saying, like, it really does depend on what we want to actually do together and how much domain knowledge and also how much bandwidth internally on their end they have to commit to the product.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense, because it's for those of you who have launched an NFT campaign or who don't know, dropping the asset itself is the beginning of the story, not the end of the story, right? So your community will immediately say, all right, I've got the NFT. That's cool. What else? You know, what else you got?
Phil, are you speaking from experience?
I'm speaking from experience just a little
Good.
bit.
Good.
But that's also part of the fun of it, right? If you're really embracing the whole community building aspect of it, then that's the person who's going to survive. That's the IP that's going to make it out of the first 5 years of this market. As we learned from YouTube, as we learned from the .com boom, you know?
Yep.
So the space is getting super, super competitive in terms of NFT marketplaces and platforms. So are there a lot of people who are starting to come to you that are saying, hey, I want to do an NFT collection. I'm a big celebrity. I'm a big star. I've also talked to these 10 other places. What have you got for me? Or are people still kind of in the learning phase?
It really is. It's hit or miss. I hear everything. I will say, by the time that people get to me and like I feel like into my inbox and to the flag of we're going to prioritize this and take a call, I think they've done enough legwork, and I think they've just been through enough to go, okay, this is kind of how it works. This is maybe how it works to other people, right? The thing that I constantly hear, or I can constantly feel when I get on these calls, is that a lot of the information and a lot of the calls they've had are absolute nonsense. And I mean that in the most straightforward way. It is so incredibly clear when people who have been in media and content and building experiences for people both in person and online for decades at a time, if they come to a meeting or a call with me and they go, I know nothing. This is so green to me. This is Greek. I don't know anything about it. What? Stop. How long have you been building a connection with a fan or a community? Great. You're not behind then. It's not confusing. Whoever got on the phone with you and tried to make this a lot more complicated than it needed to be, they're the ones who are at fault here. A lot of people just really need to understand that, hey, the technology is there to serve as a vehicle. You don't need to become an expert on the technology overnight in order to have a successful community build. You need to know how people work. The technology side of things should mostly be taken care of by your partner on that side. And if it's not, the conversation around what you don't know should be on the table, not around all the possibilities for everything that's going on in the ecosystem. That's just a distraction.
Yeah, my favorite platforms, and much like crypto.com does, you don't even need to know what NFT is, right? It's just like, hey, if you buy this, then you get this, and then here's all the other value that you get, and it'll hang out in your wallet, and there you go. And here's your credit card buy-in. You don't need to buy ETH or anything.
And I tell people all the time that we need to serve two types of folks for by and large. And of course, there are exceptions, but people that can pay with their time and people that can pay with their money. And I think if you create an opportunity where someone who doesn't have a lot of funds, but wants to be an active member of the community, wants to get involved, would love to be able to get in, they just need to get in, like allow them into this community so that they can help grow it and make it a really special place. That's valuable. And some people don't have the time, but they will swipe the credit card. They do want in. And when they have time, they'll come back to it. Those are both valuable. Create a space where both of those types of consumers feel like they belong, and you'll win.
That's true. That's true. And if you are a brand and you've built your community, or an IP holder or a creator, when is it time for them to launch an NFT? Is it something that they should be thinking about right away, or is it like only if inspiration strikes you?
To me, the NFT, and as we've talked about in private many times, the first drop itself should not be the end of the conversation. It should not even be viewed as the conversation. There should have been so much build up until you get to that date, so that there are a few hundred or 1,000 people who are excited about what you're bringing to market, even if they don't have a complete clear roadmap. And I don't tell people all the time they need to have such a crystal clear roadmap that if they don't follow it by any means, it all falls apart. No, like there should be, and this is what's great about the internet and especially Web3, is like if you get 1,000 people to care about something, right, and support it, if you can get that before the first drop and they're excited about whatever it is you're putting out, and you time it with the market right, and you don't try and be greedy with what you're asking for up front, and you can then continue after that first drop to keep those 1,000 people either excited because they want to stay in it, or two, hey, you know what? I need to be able to actually play. I got to pay rent this month. I'm so sorry. I got to let this go. Great. You're able to then sell that and be able to take care of that and hopefully take a profit from it as well. and think about things long, right? And all that goes into it, then you're ready. If the idea of having an ongoing conversation, and I do mean ongoing, 24/7 in a private Discord or private Telegram or some interface where you're able to interact directly with your fans, 6 to 7 days a week for the next 9 months, 12 months, 15 months, if that sounds like something that you cannot support, you're not necessarily not ready. You just haven't had the opportunity to meet someone who's going to meet you with that ability and that bandwidth to help support the community and the brand you're looking to build. And that's when NFTs begin, not the NFTs, that's what they are. And then if people are excited about it, we'll see. No, you're building a brand, you're building engagement, you're building a community, and you have to assume that people on the internet want to be able to speak to other people at all time, because that's the world that we're living in. And that's what we got to give them.
Right. Yeah. My favorite roadmaps are always the ones where I always know what's next, but I don't care what's 3 down the line. The market changes too much, right? So when people say, oh, they fell off their roadmap, it's like, maybe the market changed and the roadmap is no longer what's best for the project or the community, you know?
But that's also a part about managing expectations, right? You know, if Coca-Cola were to start tomorrow, right, and they wanted to say, hey, I think we have an idea for the best tasting soft drink in the world, right? And you got 1,000 people to really come behind this idea that they had this the best tasting thing. I would bet that if there were 1,000 cooks in the kitchen and some market trends and some up and down with whatever we're doing, there might be some things that change, and that's okay, as long as you've built a roadmap where flexibility and being able to move and shift and do what's best for the community long tail is in the ethos of what you're starting, not the, oh, sorry, we decided to change at the last second because some things changed. People don't like that. They want to be a part of the discussion, and I think no one's figured it out. No one ever will figure it out, but we're getting better at it, and that's the key important detail.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So we've got a couple more questions, and then we're going to go to the Q&A. So make sure to drop in more Q&A. I see we already have 10 queued up, but I'd like to get a couple more questions about the industry writ large before we get there. So I guess the big operative question is, now we're kind of on the 4th generation of NFTs in the past year, right? It was value through novelty, value through scarce communities, then value through complex roadmaps. And now we're kind of hitting that near ubiquity where everybody's got their NFT play. How did this happen so fast? What was the secret sauce to the market?
Well, I think it's a little bit of the iceberg, where you see the top of it, and then you go underneath and you go, oh, there's a lot more here.
Yeah.
I genuinely view NFTs and metaverse very similarly, right? We haven't connected the dots because, to be honest, the tech and the consumer facing tech sucks. I think it's some of the worst experiences that I've ever seen. I think every product in the market could be better. And if at any point in time, a developer or product person goes, no, I've got the great experience, I want to use it because I'm actively looking for better ways to introduce new people to crypto all the time. But I say that in the sense that a bit of a right timing, right tech, and some product initiatives that were launched in the last 18 to 24 months, right? And even 3 years or so, when you look back at some of the projects that really had that underlying base technology go live in 2019 or go live in 2020, what we're seeing today is just a bit of a trailing indicator, whether it's a month or two or 2 years, right? We're seeing what people started quite a bit ago. There are very few just overnight successes for no reason. Of course, there are a few. Go on TikTok, but the idea of all of the initiatives and the open source communities building some of the absolute best vetted collaborative technologies that timed with the most time, I think, for any of us spent at home for 12, 18 months, all at the same time, created this ecosystem that I think could have waited until 2024, 2025 to really start to gain steam. And I think it just kind of pushed it up, and it made it really in front of us and gave us enough time to think about it so that we could realize, wow, this is really interesting for a lifestyle that is hybrid, both work, school, and play, and everything in between.
Yeah, I think it's certainly one of those things that would have happened anyways, but COVID and staying at home certainly was an accelerant. So is there anything that you can tease about what's next for crypto.com/NFT, or is it famously secretive because of the organization?
Well, to be clear, I'm not the one coding it, so anything that comes out of my mouth could be an absolute lie. But I'll tell you what I'm focused on, and what we're focused on in general is that I'm actively looking for people who we enter into a conversation and what it is that they do best and what it is that they've achieved in the past, but most importantly, are in a position to do in the future, right? Not just based off past results. Like, I think your best days as a brand are ahead of you. We're looking for partnerships that get us into a relationship with those types of individuals or entities for years at a time. And I mean that in the sense of, we did the deal on the sports partnership side with F1 back probably about this time, maybe a little bit later last year. And to my marketing team's full credit, I didn't touch that deal. It wasn't mine. I don't take any credit for it whatsoever. They realized at the time that because of the content that was being brought worldwide, thanks to Netflix, because of the sport really just having such a legacy and such a well-trusted name, but being put in front of more consumers for the first time, that getting in and being able to establish a relationship with them in a way that we can continue to push that innovation together over 4 or 5 years actually sets us up to be a part of their best days, not a part of a partnership with a company that's done well in the past. And what we're looking for similarly in my specific kind of line of work is like, how do we create a revenue partnership with an entity or a company or an IP holder that we're able to do what we do best, they're able to do what they do best, and we can blow that up in a way, in a global fashion that no other brand could potentially even think of, whether it's because we've already secured so many partnerships with venues and different franchises and creators, or because we're a global powerhouse as far as the tools that we're building, or the kind of wallet, the non-custodial wallet, the exchange, the things we're building out, right? Like, what can we do that nobody else can do? And if it's never been done before and we feel good about where it's headed, we do it. If it's a safe bet, it goes into the queue. We see if it makes sense. The analysts look over it, they do the math, and maybe we'll do it. To us, it's what's the biggest, boldest, baddest strategy with people that we trust? Do that.
I love that. That's the strategy that I would like to see so many more companies adopt. And a lot of companies out there say they adopt and then struggle to actually own. So that's very cool. Let's get to the audience Q&A though.
Yeah,
to start, you know what, Jeremy, I'm going to start you with an easy one because it's the first one that came up. Jane Bushmaker says, "Hi, Jeremy. Where are you in the world? Those palm trees out your window look legit. Winky face."
I'm in San Diego. Thank you, Jane. And I also saw you, I think I saw you plug in Cosmos, which I love, but I'm in San Diego for the week, working down at an Airbnb, and it is lovely. I'm usually based in Los Angeles, but this week I'm down in sunny San Diego.
I love it. I love it. Michael Heiss, apologies if I mispronounced your name, said, "Perhaps an obvious question to some, but I have an NFT question involving some electronic IP assets owned by a client. Has anyone tried an NFT for an audio recording of something significant? Would an NFT apply to ownership of the original recording, or would the copyright and ability to monetize the recording come with it? Conversely, could the current owner sell an NFT of the original, but retain rights to monetize copies?"
Got it. Okay. So first off, thank you for that question. But this is probably one of the biggest conundrums and biggest confusion points, I think, for a lot of folks who are either trying to get into the market, are copyright holders, are the platforms that are looking to kind of create an ecosystem. And it's because copyright and commercial rights and digital ownership and all these different things that we assign to it are not ubiquitous. Just because you own an NFT does not necessarily mean you can go and create commercial rights and make movies out of it. Now, some contracts and some communities and some drops do include the necessary information to be able to take that to market. But the vast majority, right, do not. And for folks that I think are on the fence about what it is that's being granted, if this is truly something that you as a collector and as a fan are trying to turn into something that could be even smelled in the same room as a security or investment, right? You need to call a lawyer. You need to. Because what you could do, think about the best possible outcome for if you were to take your NFT that you believe that you have the commercial rights to be able to reproduce or resell or do something with, right? And it blows up, it's the most successful thing in the world. The last thing you want to do is have done that in a way that was completely illegal. So if this is something that you're looking to take from a collector's mindset and shift over into something that's a real business model, you need to get in touch with people that know what they're talking about. And I would highly suggest look internal. Talk to the group internally, see what's going on, whether it's a DAO, whether it's a community, see what everybody else is doing. And then once you have that insight from internally and can kind of speak to that, then bring that to that outside professional to be able to actually make that call.
And I think it's a good time to plug Ned Sherman and Manat in terms of legal advice, because he will be here at the end of it. And look him up on LinkedIn. And if you've got a big project, him and his team work in this space. So
I don't know if you know this, Phil, but we use Manat for some big projects.
There we go. There we go. In the family. I love it. I love it. Dana Childs asks possibly the operative question, specifically, how do NFTs offer value to someone?
Money question, the $1 trillion question.
Yeah.
How do NFTs offer value to someone? It's the same way that how does any brand offer any product that could make someone's life better, right? I think we too often view NFTs as the reason someone should care, which I want to drop kick into the next world. It's not about the NFT. It's about, what's it pointing towards? What does it lead you to? What does it grant that access to, right? NFTs, to me, it's your ticket in. It's your proof of authority. It's your proof of verification. It's proof of history. It's the thing that shows and proves in a very transparent and immutable layer, right? That you can or cannot do something, or that you can or cannot be offered something. And to me, it's not about that vehicle. To me, it's as if everyone ran around back into the 90s and early 2000s and said, "I just love MP3s. I just really love them. They're just fantastic." No, you like streaming. You like being able to burn CDs, right? You don't like MP3s, right? The thing that the vehicle that it gives you, that's the exciting part. So to me, it's how are you using the technology, right, to create a new relationship, a very, very easily provable relationship with you and your fan base, your customer, your friend, your colleague, right? What are you able to use that technology to prove? That's where the value comes, not the NFT itself.
I love it. Yes, the value is in the eye of the creator and the contract, right? So
yes.
Forgive me if I mispronounce the name. I believe it's Day Bogan says, does crypto.com directly advise? Hey, there we go. I did pronounce it properly.
Yeah.
He asks, does crypto.com directly advise customers on the IP issues surrounding their NFT drops?
So the short answer is no. We don't want to be the arbiter of truth as far as what you can and cannot do, obviously. However, when we're entering into a partnership, right, or an arrangement where we're trying to get something off the ground in a very sustainable fashion, right, we don't also want to have created a vehicle to get you or us in trouble. The more important answer to that is, however, don't trust anybody that's not on your team to put you in a position where you're going to be liable, whether that's us or anybody else. I do not believe that you should rely on any third party that's not genuinely, and I do mean contractually obligated to, with a fiduciary responsibility to take care of you, right? You need to be able to trust that the advice you're getting is for you, not for the whole group or for somebody else that could be attached to it. And you got to take care of yourself in that fashion. So although we try and advise people and push them away from doing things that we know are blatantly illegal or not to code, right? The most important piece from a legal and IP perspective is that you're going to the professionals, even if they're Web 2, going to the professionals who understand how those copyrights and how those clearances work, and then coming to us, and then we can probably from there have a safe assumption that we can bring it forward. But even then, you still have to go through all the checks and balances.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how many lawyers I've spoken to in the past year where I've had to explain what an NFT is and how it works. It's not their fault. Lawyers know the law. They depend on us to tell them about the tech, and then they can say how that works. But on the other hand, another shout out to Manat. They also know the tech. So good to talk to them. Michael Heiss is back. The question relates to the original broadcast. Oh, this is a follow-up to the earlier one. So we'll move on to the next one. Anonymous attendee, this was before you answered the first question, so we'll just breeze past the first part. Is Jeremy in Puerto Rico with the rest of the crypto and NFT community? And if so, does he think that's the new digital entertainment hub? A lot of people have been talking about Puerto Rico around crypto and NFTs.
I don't know if it's much as the digital entertainment hub as much as it is the I'd like that 10% back at the end of the year hub. I have not personally made it to Puerto Rico, but when you start seeing my emails or my posts from Puerto Rico, know that I've done something very well to the point where I'm willing to give up my my acai bowls delivered to my door every other day in Los Angeles for whatever Puerto Rico has to offer, which probably has decent acai bowls.
Yeah, it's funny when you go to an NFT conference, how much the words Puerto Rico comes up is pretty astounding.
Puerto Rico, BVIs, Malta, Caymans, all of them.
Exactly. Simon Applebaum says, Jeremy, do you see blockchain, NFTs, and cryptocurrency used to get new TV series and services off the ground? And if so, how big of a marketplace will this get?
Huge. I think it's the future. Like, it's absolutely the future. The entertainment industry as a whole, whether it's music, film, TV, live, everything, to me has needed a massive shift for decades, right? And I think we've seen it a little bit, and Spotify obviously had a massive influence on this, and from the culture perspective, and some of the larger tech companies coming in and ruffling feathers, or startups. But to me, being able to view this zero trust or these universal sources of truth as a way that people can kind of gather around new ideas is incredibly exciting. I genuinely believe that we'll start to see the output of what's going in and starting to really be discussed today in maybe 18 months, 24 months. It's going to take some time, but there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of people out there who would love to get involved to the ground floor of something creative, and they just don't live in an area, or their network does not extend to that. And so I genuinely believe that people's selfish curiosity in the best way, right, will fuel those conversations to say, how can I put my money or my time to work in a way that creates something that I'm such a fan of, whether it's content or music or live experience or something else, right? And bring that to market in a way that might not have been commercially exciting for the same typical traditional film and finance or music finance or record labels that have been somewhat of the arbiters of truth as far as what is and is not good for decades now. I'm so excited on it. There's so much for us to learn. I'm actively in as many of those conversations as possible. And please, if that's something you're interested in, go. Run forward, sprint, break things fast, learn things quickly. I think that's such an exciting area.
Yeah, and that's part of the dream of Own Every Word on crypto.com too, was how do we make a comedy game show out of NFTs? So, and we always appreciate
100%.
your support there. Dana Childs is back asking, does an NFT's value appreciate over time or depreciate? I guess that's another big operative question.
Yeah, can. But similar to everything, right? There are certain things that were worth a lot more yesterday than they are today, and vice versa, right? What is the NFT increasing or decreasing in value is the wrong, I think, optics to look at that. The brand, the sentiment, the overall competition for some level of scarcity, right? Those are the things that shift, and then therefore influence the price of that, or how much people are interested in it. So it's not necessarily looking at like, why is my NFT worth less than it was yesterday? It's why is the community, why is the brand, why is whatever it unlocked no longer as valuable or has less people competing for it than it did earlier? And that's what you need to focus on, not the NFT going up and down on a chart somewhere.
Yeah, I always worry about people looking at it for pure speculation, because there's easier ways to make money and less dangerous ways to make money. I buy a lot of NFTs. I'm addicted to it. And I would say that I probably lost more money than gained if I looked at it purely speculatively. But man, have I had fun for the past 365 days doing that, or before in the CryptoKitties era. So if you're having fun, then who cares as much if it goes up or down in value? An anonymous attendee asks, is there a movement to protect the underlying NFT artwork with real trademarks and copyrights so the intellectual property rights can be legally enforced?
So this didn't start with Web3. This has been around for I don't even know how long. When you think about like Google videos shifting over to YouTube, and then the major labels going, what's going on with all of our content there, and the money not going back, right? So whether it's the content ID side of things and being able to have some level of, at least these are the rules that we're going with, whether I agree or disagree with those in general, the idea of being able to have this audiovisual thumbprint of everything that could potentially be brought to market, right? That's a big conversation, and tracking it is one thing, and having it kind of pointed back to a database of the right copyright holders is another thing, and then being able to get the funds right pushed to wherever is another thing, right? And so being able to have that full life cycle is difficult, but it's very important. And so there are some folks that I think are building some decent technology at this point to be able to kind of stick whatever it is into a certain part of the stack, but finding someone who can really create an open source content and library that's constantly updated with the most up-to-date information, and being able to use that to be able to get people paid is still ways out.
I love it. We have one more question, but before we ask this question, we are not going to get to all the answers. So please find us on LinkedIn, find Jeremy, find Ned, find me, ask your questions there. We love to keep the conversation going because there's so much good conversation having here, and some challenging questions and awesome. And I wish we could dive into all of these for an hour, but for now we'll end on this one. Rules for NFTs vary from platform to platform. You just saw Steam, for example, getting rid of blockchain games, and they said the reason is there was a lot of scammy games that were launching. Do you think that this will continue, or do you think there'll be norms?
I think that there's going to be scams, and there's going to be people that are trying to build good products for everyone. To me, that the idea of being able to put some serious boundaries that everyone kind of get behind, I think is important. I think the reason that Roblox is so incredible is that it's generally speaking a rather simple idea of what you can and cannot do, and everyone can build their version of that creativity, but putting some guidelines and some real roadblocks in place to keep people in that community focused on what it is that they're trying to achieve is important. And so for me, I genuinely believe that these platforms should be able to say whether or not NFTs are going to be a part of their overall strategy. And on top of that, if they are allowing them, what capacity they want to bring them in. It's not, I don't think, great for the community to like distract people or bring people all over the place. I do think that the Web3, Web2, solutions that are being built should be thinking about the consumer experience as the number one. And so for that, if some people want that to be a part of that story, I love that. For some people that don't, I fully support that. You have to do what's best for your community and what your customers and your fans want. Worry about your business objectives after that, because if you don't have trust and you don't have a real connection and relationship with what the actual users want, you won't have a business anyway.
Absolutely. Jeremy, thank you so much for this. This has been enlightening. The chat has been popping off about how much they love you, people asking how to get a hold of you. Can you just very quickly say what the best way to get a hold of you is?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to do some due diligence this afternoon on my LinkedIn DMs. Hop on over there and send me directly there. Jeremy Lewis, you should be able to find me. Jeremy Lewis, crypto, Google it away. And I will spend a couple hours this afternoon making sure I get people funneled the right way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And thank you, Ned, for having us. This was so much fun.
Thank you, Ned.
Oh, Jeremy, what a kickoff. It was fantastic. Really
this
great.
Fun.
To the audience, you guys were on fire today. Love all the great questions and all the comments. And Jeremy, I couldn't agree with you more. We're definitely seeing the entertainment, and this is a huge opportunity for the entertainment industry in all top types of interesting ways. So, guys, have a great day. See you later, audience. Have a good one, folks.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.